From WTDG Toledo, Bridges, with your host, Donnie Miller, connecting our community with information about issues and opportunities.
Hey there, good morning and welcome to Bridges. My name is Donnie. I am so glad to have you with us today. As you know, if you've been watching us for the past few weeks, we are bringing to you all of those folks who want to represent you in the capacity of an elected official. We think this is important. It is really important if you want this city to work. It's an opportunity for you to stop complaining about the way things are not going and change the direction of the city by voting, by learning about those people who want to represent you and telling them what you think. We have with us today, in that very line of thinking, the Honorable Mayor Michael Bell. How are you?
I'm great, Donnie.
It's good to see you. Look fabulous. We haven't worn you out, huh?
No.
No?
No.
You really want to do this a second term?
I think there's some things that we need to be able to finish. We got a good record going as far as trying to rebuild our city, and being able to continue will put us right where we need to be.
But you could be out riding that fabulous bike of yours.
Absolutely.
On the open road. And
What I tell people, and that comes up pretty regularly, is that, well, you could be retired, you don't have to be doing this. And a large portion of what we're doing, what I say is that there are people in Toledo that don't have life preservers. I do, okay? And a lot of what we're doing and a lot of heat that I take is for those people who don't have the life preservers, because we have to redevelop the city into a way that's going to be very positive for the future for all these young people that are coming up behind us that want to have a great place to live.
what a great way to put it, life preservers for folks. Think you've done a good job at that so far?
I think so. I think that where I run into a lot of criticism is that this system called Toledo, this administration and everything that was going on, was truly messed up. From the beginning.
How messed up was it?
Well, we start with just the basics. The budget, $48 million deficit. That percentage-wise was worse than the deficit that Detroit, Michigan was in. And you know where they're at right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so we started with something that was the worst budget ever in the history of the city of Toledo, and trying to bring it back into a very positive way. And to do that, there were no simple solutions. And I think people look for simple solutions, but there were no simple solutions.
Did you know it was $48 million when?
I knew that by the time I was halfway into the campaign, it just kept jumping. In the midsummer, it was somewhere around 17. It just kept jumping. It was a lot, put it this way, it was a lot bigger than I ever thought it was going to be. I knew that it was going to be a problem, but I didn't have any idea that it was going to be as bad as it was.
Yeah, $48 million, but you have managed to balance that budget.
I've managed to balance the budget, making some really tough calls, and those, like I said, some of those calls have irritated people at times, but the bottom line is what the mayor has to be able to do is be able to manage the city. This is a $500 million operation, and we can't afford to let it go south budgetarily, and so before you can do, and that's where people get really sort of confused too, before you can do some of those great things that people want to be done in the city, you have to have a stable budget. You got to have a stable foundation. So we've been working on the first few years and being able to come out of that $48 million deficit and be able to move in a direction that presents us with a solid budget to be able to work on the police classes, the fire classes, to be able to build the roads, to be able to tear the houses down. All that works off money. And if you didn't have any money, there's no way you could get that done. And so we're starting to move in that direction.
That's really true. And I talk to lots of people around the city, and they'll say, well, why haven't we done this? Why haven't they done that? As though money does grow on trees. And, and running the city is like running your house. You can't buy the stuff if you don't have the money to buy the stuff. And I think people do forget that.
If you use that same concept that you just said, how would you do it for your house? If you're trying to stabilize your house, understanding that the recession put a lot of people in a lot of pain. And there were a lot of people that had to cut back and had to do things a little bit differently than maybe they've ever had to do in their lifetime. Then we had to do the same thing inside the city, and it was uncomfortable because people are so used to a certain pattern in government, and this was something we hadn't seen since 1930. And so I wasn't around then. Even my parents weren't around then.
Right.
And so we were dealing with something we never saw, and people were trying to use solutions that had worked in the past for something they had never seen
before.
Okay,
right.
And so it puts you in a very awkward position because you have to do some things that people are saying, well, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? Well, because it had to be done to be able to stabilize this budget. Otherwise, we'd be sitting just like Detroit. They're underneath an emergency manager now because they couldn't move it in the direction it needed to be moved, and they could not make those decisions.
Right.
You know, and I think that sometimes people don't understand, okay, we're sitting here and we're not in any type of bubble. We got Detroit on this side, we got Cincinnati about 200 miles down the road that just came up with a one-time plan to be able to save their police and fire departments from layoffs. And we're sitting here adding firefighters, police officers, building fire stations, building, you know, fixing roads, and people are saying, well, and we haven't raised anybody's taxes.
I know, you know, Jen sent me some information, and I was really surprised to see the progress you've made and the things that have happened in the condensed form that she sent it to me. Really brought home some of the progress that your administration has made. Brian, can we put that graphic back up, please, about that one? Thank you very much. As we mentioned before, there was a $48 million shortfall when the mayor took office in 2010. He's now working with a balanced budget, plans to get 61 miles of roads repaved this year, has demolished 1,100 blighted structures and housing. Can we, do we have the one about the hiring? While we're looking for that, there you go. Police and fire totals. Let me kind of walk you folks through this. During the Finkbeiner administration, all 12 years of that administration, you'll have to correct me if I got any of this wrong, he hired a total of 249 police and fire during his 12 years there. Is that correct? Pretty close?
During his 12 years.
During his 12 years, yeah. Mayor Ford, during his 4 years, hired 32. You'll see that Mayor Bell, in 3 years, has hired 165 police and firemen. That includes 30 officers proposed in this new class.
No, that actually, that is, we will have hired 172 firefighters and 165 police officers.
Okay,
in that third.
Yeah,
So
that wasn't clear from the information I got. So you have really just blown the top off this.
By the end of the year, we will have hired more police officers in a 3-year period than in a 4-year period than that happened in the last 12 years of the other two previous two administrations. And we will have hired more firefighters in a 4-year period than happened in the last 16 years.
So you're moving in a direction that you're really proud of.
I'm doing what I was, you know, when I came in office, we had a list and we had presented it. We presented it on your show. We talked about the things we were going to do. And at that point, when I was running for mayor, I said, to do these things, to stabilize this budget, you're going to make a lot of people mad. But we have done everything that we said we were going to do. We said we were going to attack the safety forces and be able to add people. We've done that. We said we'd try to work toward the blighted areas. We've done that. We said we would try to fix the roads. We're doing that. We said we would balance the budget. And people didn't think we would ever be able to do that. And we've done it. And we're now headed to our 2nd consecutive year in the black, okay, from something that started way negative in the red.
Yeah.
In a situation where people thought there's absolutely no way this fire chief is ever going to be able to fix this thing, and we fixed it in a 2-year period. So we have done everything that we said we were going to do.
So what would you say to those people who said, well, that's not exactly true? The Marina District is still undone.
Well, it's undone, but it's not any undone than any other business proposition. You could look at Southwick Mall and you can say it's undone. You could look at Northtown Mall, you could say it's undone. You could look at other properties that people have purchased and don't move on until they know the economy is good for them to move.
But there were some promises or some expectations developed around the Marina District, especially with the sale of the Marina District. Right. And I don't, either the public is not informed as to the progress that's going on on that particular project, in which case I hope you can give us an update on that today, or simply nothing has been going on. So which is it?
I'm going to tell you this, and I can, this is the only way it can be explained. The people who own that property now are business people, and they know that when the market is good enough, or well enough for them to be able to move and be able to put something that will have sustainability, they will move. They will not move until that point. And so it is no different than any other business in the United States that you won't see the Andersons building something if they don't have sustainability. You won't see any other major company, Walmart, building anything if there isn't sustainability. So you got to know that wherever you're sitting, because we purchased this land, which helped us, by the way, with our $48 million deficit because they paid us in cash to be able to do that. That was the first step. The next step is being able to develop it. But
Well, when does that, who defines, they clearly define when the time is sustainable.
Yeah.
And I think for
Absolutely.
many of the folks who live in the city, there have been promises as far back as the Finkbeiner administration that land was going to be developed. There was some minor development on that property.
This is the first time city money wasn't used to be able to do any of this. This has been, everything that we're doing now is being done with the money of a private person. Okay, everybody else that promised something with the Marina District, it was all with city money. Okay, if you do this with the city money, we can do this.
We can do that.
If you do this with these people came in and bought this, didn't ask for anything. Okay, bought the land. Okay, so it's a totally different operation than what has currently or previously happened involving the Marina District.
So I think the important point that you make here for folks to understand is that this is really no longer a city project.
No.
This is a privately managed project.
Yes.
When those folks decide that they will develop that property, they will develop that property.
And here's the other part, is that if they don't move on it in 5 years, we have the ability to buy it back for the exact same money that we sold it to them for. Okay, and that's the other part. So we didn't give away something without a chance of getting it back if it didn't work.
Well, let's say that again, because I don't know that ever gets to be part of the
No,
conversation.
it probably doesn't.
So in 5 years, they really have a window to
Right.
determine what time is
Right.
when sustainability occurs, and that's a 5-year window.
Right, and if we don't think they've moved appropriately or quick enough to our satisfaction, all we got to do is pay them the exact same amount of money that they bought the property for, and they signed this with no interest, and we can buy it
And
back.
you buy that back.
And
It's a pretty amazing deal.
but yeah, and here's the amazing part though, if that were to occur, I guarantee we'd have the same group of people sitting there going, okay, now you all talked about it, let's see you step up with your money now and put something on it. And everybody be running underneath the rock again, okay? So, you know, the reality of this is that these people took the money out of their pocket and bought that land. It was some land that nobody else had been willing to put any money into. And okay, and so now we're holding them to a higher standard than anybody else that's ever been there, because everybody else had city funds to do what they were doing.
That's a really good point. In the 1 minute that we have left in this first segment, is that model sort of the impetus of your travel for economic development? There's been a lot of discussion about the amount of travel, but there's also been coverage on the fact that, for instance, your trip to Germany did result in some real interest by folks in Germany in our city.
Well, it hasn't stopped with China. The Chinese business people that we're getting now used to go to New York and San Francisco and places like that, and Toledo used to be an afterthought. Now they fly in just purposely to do business in Toledo. It's going on a regular basis. In the last 3 weeks, we've had 3 different groups who didn't know each other, came from different portions of China, looking at Toledo and figuring out how to do things. We got people from Germany that are now starting to look. In fact, if you check, there are 2 mayors from Dallas and Fort Worth are now down in South America doing the same thing I'm doing.
The same thing.
Okay.
Hold that thought.
Yeah.
Okay. I wanna pick up there when we come back.
Okay.
We need to go away for just a minute, but I promise you we will be right back with Mayor Mike Bell.